Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to today's City Commission meeting. We'll be going over some of our budgets still. Ike, what do we have?
Could we mute that, please? Okay, good afternoon, Mayor. We have a very ambitious schedule this afternoon, so we talked at the first budget workshop about a debt capacity analysis that my office engaged in. So we're going to start this afternoon with a presentation surrounding that. From there, we have our annual capital projects presentation for you. You may have questions about some of those projects. There are a lot of projects this year. That is very intentional on our part. After that, we will take up consideration of the proposed Development Corporation budget, and then general fund agency funding. So if it's okay with you, Mayor, we'll jump right into it. There was one other housekeeping item I wanted to mention. A copy of the PowerPoint was distributed to members of the City Commission, along with some supplemental pages from the initial, and that's these that should be coming around right now. These are some highlights from the first day's workshop presentation that I want to refer you back to as we're talking. There had been a question I had distributed to you, I can't remember if it was our first or second meeting, a spreadsheet that showed the outstanding debt obligations of the city. And one of you had asked if we could let you know the interest rates that each of those obligations carry. That's a complicated question, not because we don't know what it is, but it's a blended rate that we don't always have. The financial advisor is working on putting those blended rates together so you can see each obligation as a single rate. But I will tell you that the rates range at the low end from less than 1%, 0%, to the high end, less than 5%. And the advice from our financial advisor at this point is, based on the rates we are carrying, to let those loans live their life. There is no opportunity for savings to refinance or pay off early. And that's something we'll talk about as part of the presentation today. I wanted to lay a little bit of the landscape, and this isn't limited to recent history, but the landscape in Texas for, at a very basic level, how municipalities, the levers that we have to raise money. And we all know that it takes a significant amount of money to run the city of McAllen on a daily basis. Coming into next budget year, you're looking at more than $500,000 a day for our regular operations to see themselves through. And so it's important to keep in the back of your mind that there is, effective 2019, a voter approval tax rate that we can't exceed. So we cannot exceed new revenue as a result of taxes, the amount of in excess of 3.5%. There are other limitations that the landscape in Texas imposes on us, which include things like caps on raising appraised values, new exemptions, business personal property, which is fantastic, great for small businesses, and things like that. So we watch all of that. We have to watch all of that very closely as we think through what it takes to operate the city and what it will take for us to continue down the path that we've been on. So I want to start by drawing your attention to two slides that I handed you separately. These were shown to you during the initial workshop presentation. And the first one is really a look back at 5 years of the McAllen property tax rate. But the second page is a 10-year look at what that rate was. And if you look back to 2017, 18, 18, 19, and 19, 20, you can see that the tax rate was in McAllen climbing probably appropriately based on what it was costing the city to operate at that time. In 2020, McAllen, like many cities across the country, received significant federal funding in the form of the ARPA payment, the CARES Act funding that came to the city. For the city of McAllen, that was roughly $40 million, round number. And that $40 million allowed us to execute a very robust capital improvement program without having to either borrow money or dip into fund balance. And that was great. And what I want to show you by the end of this presentation is a way that we could possibly, through very modest incremental adjustments to the INS rate, achieve not only a $40 million windfall benefit to the city, but something closer to $150 to $200 million source of revenue that we could use to take on much needed capital improvement projects that we have not executed. And I'll use an example. I don't know if Marlene is here. Yes, she is. Marlene, I don't know how many of you have been out to visit the traffic operations building. And I use that word building very, very liberally because it's not a building. It's closer to a shed that has probably existed since the 1940s and 50s. And Marlene, you have done amazing things with the facilities that you have. But a number of years ago, we purchased a piece of property with the intent of eventually remodeling the warehouse, moving traffic operations into a much larger, much more efficient building space so that we can address one of the community needs that we hear on a regular basis. Traffic needs help. And so that's just one example of, and I think 5 years ago, we were looking at $2.5 million to complete that project. Well, fast forward through inflation and prices rising, we're probably, Eduardo, am I going to be too far off if I say 3.2, 3.5 million in today's dollars? Is probably what we're looking at. So that's the other point I want to make is we're never going to be able to accomplish the tasks that I think the community wants to see from us and I think you want to see from your staff as efficiently and for the best value than if we spend today's dollars waiting rather than waiting to chase inflation. That's a race I don't think we will keep up with in the short term. So that kind of lays the land. I also wanted to let you know, well, I'll get to that when we get to that slide. I'm getting too far ahead of myself. Right now, and there have been a lot of questions about what is the city manager's recommendation with respect to the tax rate this year. When we showed you our presentation on day one of budget workshops, we showed you this piece of paper, and the line that's highlighted, circled with an arrow pointing to it is exactly what it was. The revenue at the top of the page reflects the revenue the city should anticipate receiving this year without an adjustment to the tax rate. And your proposed budget is balanced with revenue over expenses of $1.6 million. So there's not a need this year to adjust the tax rate. I want to say that to you again. There is not a need this year to adjust the tax rate. However, as the landscape in Texas changes and it becomes more and more complicated for municipalities across the state to maintain the rate at which we've seen valuations grow, and this is something that every mayor I have worked for has said from the dais. Just because there's more money coming to the city and the law requires us to say the rate we are adopting, even though it's the same number as it was last year, that this is a tax increase, tax code requires us to say that. It's not a tax increase. The city is receiving additional revenue because values have increased. This year, for the first time, we saw values increase and almost, because I have to be honest with you, almost no additional revenue. Why? Exactly what I said. Business personal property tax exemptions, and thank them for their service. What did I do with that letter? Here it is. Veterans exemptions. I want to make sure I say these exactly as they are. Business personal property tax exemptions, veteran exemptions, and Freeport exemptions impacted the valuation increase negatively for the first time in McAllen, nearly $500 million. On top of that, and I am still waiting for the appraisal district to respond to a letter I sent to them earlier this week, there is another $300 million impact due to valuation changes in non-homestead property improvements. That could be a shed, an ancillary building on a piece of property. For the first time, we saw a more than 4% decrease in the value of those assets. So while values increased in McAllen nicely, we continue to lead the value, we continue to create value, we continue to lead the valley. These exemptions that are now possible are making it more and more difficult for that to turn into revenue, not only for us to maintain the operations that we do on a daily basis, but to engage in this long-term planning. So what a lot of communities do is debt capacity planning. They look at what revenues are anticipated to be. They look at what debt we carry, and I'm going to show you where McAllen sits, and you're going to be hopefully very, very pleased, and then realize that we are disadvantaged because of the good behavior that the leaders of this community engaged in for decades. This slide, again, you saw during the budget presentation. I don't know how I got that to cover it up. I apologize for that. If somebody can make that go away, please.
Okay?
I apologize. So this slide shows you a 10-year history of the unassigned beginning and ending fund balance for the city and the days of working capital that we have generated. And you will see over the period of that 10 years, that number has increased significantly, well in excess of 50–60%. And we're very, very, very proud to have been part of the teams that helped the commissions do that. You are going to see, and this slide represents the conversation we'll move into about capital projects that we have planned for this year. There are many of them. There are many more of them, and that is intentional. One of the things we want to do is make sure that every year we're not putting a project on the shelf, but we are making incremental progress in various areas so that when grant opportunities arise, when MPO funding opportunities arise, that we are ready with shovel-ready projects to go after that fund and help us execute those projects. So why, and this is rehashing some of the things I've already said, why debt capacity matters. Materials, labors, interest, they've all increased recently. We hold the second highest possible bond rating that we can receive, and that's great. That means we're going to get the benefit of the best rates that are out there. We've seen 58% valuation growth since 2020. That is absolutely amazing. This analysis is a first ever for the city. And so we're excited to talk to you about it. This is what valuation growth has looked like since 2020. We had a tax base of $10.3 billion. It's up to $16.3 billion this year. That's a 2% increase this year, and we'll take it in the economy we're in and with the regulations that the appraisal district had to deal with. The problem is that 2% was absorbed by those new exemptions that we talked about. This chart was prepared by your financial advisor, and it shows the aggregate M&O, INS, and total tax rate since 2020. And you can see where that rate has moved, and you can see where it has moved. You can see that consistently, as it should, as we pay debt off, the INS rate has decreased from 0.055 to 0.035 next year. And we have reduced the M&O rate since 2020 from 0.44 to 0.41. Again, wonderful that we had access to the CARES Act money so that we could do that. This chart is the one I said I would show you, that shows where McAllen sits when we compare ourselves to cities similar to ours. What does that mean? Cities with budgets like ours, not necessarily populations like ours. At the left side of the screen, you will see the city in that category with the highest INS rate, meaning they are carrying and paying for the largest amount of debt, and the city at the far right, which is carrying the lowest amount of debt and paying the least amount of money, and that would be the city of McAllen. This is a comparison regionally of the total tax rate, so M&O and INS, that cities are seeing. And you can again see that the city of McAllen sits at the very lowest point. That's awesome. So we have rates as high as 0.78, and McAllen's current rate 0.448989, which is what I recommend we consider adopting again this year. But we've got a plan for the future, and we have to start thinking about, as we've wrapped up the 2017 and 2018 bond projects, as we showed you on the first day of the workshops, the budget workshops, as we have spent down the ARPA money we received and completed the projects that the City Commission assigned to those, we need to start thinking about where the next tranche of money is going to come so that we can continue developing McAllen in a way that it remains the most attractive place for new business, for new industry, and for new residents. And so that's what Ann and I have worked on over the last several months. And looking at I want to take a step back and draw your attention back to the unassigned fund balance at $110 million. That's 242 days of working capital. Awesome. We're actually going to be closer to 260 days if we adopt the budget that we propose this year. That's awesome. But we don't need quite that much reserve. That's probably a little too conservative. And so one of the things I asked Ann is, well, if we take $20 million of that or scale back that reserve to 195-ish days, where it worked out on what we did was 198 days, how does that help us with debt capacity? I do want to say that I am not concerned about taking that money, because as assuming 1% growth and our operations growing proportionately as they have, that unassigned fund balance will come back to us over the course of what I propose this program might look like. And so taking that money, putting it to use for the community is going to get paid back to us. And this is what the capacity looks like. So we ran 4 different scenarios, and you'll see at the top there TAV, so that's your ad valorem tax base, assuming no growth or 1% growth, depending on the scenario. And then we looked at, and this is where the 3-cent tax increase came from in your first day's presentation. I wanted you to kind of think about that number so you can see what happens. What we say is, assuming no growth and we adopt a 3-cent tax increase in year 1, which could be next year or any year the City Commission considers in the future, we would have debt capacity of approximately $103 million. Scaling back, now this is without any infusion of unassigned fund balance that we have in the bank. If we stagger that tax adjustment over 3 years, that capacity increases to $128 million plus or minus. And if you add some cash that I think we can afford to add, you can get that capacity up to about $150 million very, very comfortably, and probably a little bit more than that, because each year as you work through this program over 3 years, you will have additional unassigned fund balance available to add to that. So that $128 million does not include that.
What is the 2034 infusion?
You know,
What does
I
that
knew you were
reference?
going to ask that question, so let me move to the next slide. So if you look right there, I have a box highlighted, 2034, 2035. That additional infusion comes because you have a ton of debt that rolls off. And so we are no longer burdened with that. And so that's where that capacity comes
Part
from.
of the 98
Yes, sir.
million, is that?
Rolls off
Roll
in
off.
2034, 2035. And so your repayment obligation drops that from 34 to 35 from 5 million and change down to $1 million. Good question, and I'm glad I was able to anticipate it. So new debt costs maybe 3.5 cents, probably less in any given year, depending on where valuations continue to go. What does that do to our INS rate? Where does that put us on that slide that I showed you where we were the very, very cheapest? So I left our current place on there in green, and that moves us to where you see that yellow highlight there, right in between Odessa and Leek. And it still keeps you comfortably within the lowest quartile in the state of Texas in cities our size.
But we would have $120 million.
You would have closer to $150 million to spend on projects. And the projects, I have some examples here on the slide. These are things that staff put on a list of projects that we have developed but not had the capacity to take on. If, in the future, the commission is interested in continuing to walk down this path, what I would recommend we do is hold a separate workshop to take these projects and other ideas from the commission and prioritize them in terms of what you would want to see accomplished first, second, and so on, so that we can make sure they fit into when money is available. So these are just some categories of things that we could accomplish. Public safety projects, including possibly paying for the indoor firearms training facility. EOC at the fire department is in need of renovation. Its original equipment from when that building was built and is in desperate need of an upgrade. That's $1 million project. We've identified $60 million in parks projects that we think our citizens would be interested in. Streets, traffic, I mentioned traffic earlier, but there are lots of road improvements that you'll see we are making incremental progress on, but we could execute a lot of those a lot more rapidly if we had cash today to do that. Drainage remains a high priority for our community. It would allow us to take on another set of life-changing drainage projects. And then quality of life projects. We put the par 3 golf course on there, the second shot course. That's in this year's budget, so there would be opportunities to do other quality of life projects. But when we were originally developing this slide deck, we hadn't quite worked out where we would be in terms of readiness on that golf project. And so that's there as an example, but we'll need to substitute something else if that's of interest to the City Commission. Again, and the numbers fluctuate a little bit because we won't know exactly where we are until we see the money that is available at the time, but somewhere between $150 and $160 million in funding available. Of the project staff identified, we could probably knock out about 83% of the projects that have been developed over my tenure I'm not going to say with the city, but I'll say in my tenure in the city attorney's office as the city attorney and city manager. So let's say over the last 5 years, we could knock out 83% of those projects and then start thinking about more for the future.
Can I ask a question?
Please.
As you've been formulating this debt plan, the utilization plan, with the cash that could be attributed to these different projects, have you all sat with grants and other departments to see what matching funds that, if we're going to spend some of these, might be accessible through state and federal sources so that we can leverage the cash that we will be implementing?
The answer to that specific question is no, but that's because we haven't decided we're going to specifically look for any of, well, for the projects that were on this slide as an example of things that are in this budget, the answer to that question is yes. For projects that are possibilities, the specific answer is no, but I will tell you, you probably have the best grants director in the Rio Grande Valley. I better not say that too loudly because somebody might be listening. I don't mean anybody in this room. I mean people who might want to take her away from us. But she is very good at identifying resources to do exactly what you're asking. So as we develop out a more definitive plan, we'll allocate the resources to look for those things before we pull the trigger on anything.
So as I deal with all the cities, you're incorrect. It's not a problem.
Julia, you can't go anywhere.
Let's say, like an example, you mentioned the shooting range, which is very important, okay? How we're doing it today. Yeah.
I know. That's why
We've got a 12.4 million budget there.
Yes, sir.
But there could be, it could be less if we would get some money, some federal money.
And yeah,
Say
that's exactly right, Commissioner, and I'm glad you said that. That's the total cost for that facility. If we have agencies that want to participate or agencies that may pay a fee for use, that number would certainly be reduced by those possibilities.
But it's in that 169.
Yes, sir. Yes,
the
sir.
whole 12.
The whole 12. And again, that was just a project and a project cost on the list. It's an idea. None of this is set in stone. I just wanted there to be some numbers up there for you to have something to work with.
Yeah, well,
So this is just the
public
impact
consumption.
without really leveraging that money in accessing other potential funding sources.
That's exactly right. Because you're going to get a lot.
That was my main point.
This is us paying 100% for all these projects,
Yeah.
and we don't want to do that.
Right.
So you are exactly right. This will be leveraged to the extent possible,
Thank you.
assuming this is something you want to continue talking about.
As we have done for years and years and years. This is not, I mean, we budget for it, but
We
look and search.
Yeah, we budget for. Here's something that in my tenure here I've seen us do. We budget for projects. We budget for what we can accomplish. But I'll stop here. We don't necessarily budget to assume debt. And I'm not suggesting that we take debt that we can't afford. What I am suggesting is that if a manageable amount of debt would allow us to leverage and access significant funds that could be used for capital today, that money would be much more powerful than chasing projects through inflation. And really help position us, continue to position, I say us, this city, I consider it mine, I guess I shouldn't, really continue to position the city of McAllen as a leader in innovation, a leader in bringing services, amenities, quality of life. There is a reason home values in McAllen sit tiers above areas throughout the Rio Grande Valley because of the investment we make in infrastructure. At the end of the day, the categories that are most important to me are all of these. Why? Because they're all your general fund priorities. They're all the general government infrastructure projects, that make McAllen the city that it is, and a leader amongst the state. There are a few more slides. You can read the key takeaways. I wanted to show you that because I wanted you to know what your management team is thinking about in terms of the next 3, 5, 7, 10 years, and to recognize that this kind of analysis is something that we can cycle through and reevaluate every 3 to 5 years, so that we're making sure we always keep our INS rate within the lowest quartile in the state, but also always have access to the capital we need to stay ahead of where development is pushing us. And so if you have questions, I would love to address those. If you don't, then we'll, with the mayor's permission, transition into a discussion of the capital projects we have slated to tackle this year.
Any questions? Well, I don't necessarily have questions. I just think we need to make a concerted effort to educate our community about how this works, because a lot of people, I assure you 99% of our community doesn't know that we have one of the lowest tax rates. They don't.
I want to rephrase what you just said, Mayor. We have the lowest tax rate.
The lowest, exactly.
And if we adjust that tax rate, we will still have the lowest tax rate.
And that's what I'm talking about. And even with the issues we have with the state that are uninvited, it has made us kind of have to recalculate or think differently, which is what we're doing. So in essence, we probably are going to have to pick up little by little, and the general public is not going to understand why.
The other thing I want you to realize is, despite inflation, right, despite the fact that the cost of doing anything, despite the fact that if you look at the 10-year history on what it takes to operate the city, increases somewhere around 15-18% a year, despite services costing more, goods costing more, labor costing more, there being labor shortages, despite all of those challenges, access to about $150 million and the impact, still keeping your tax rate below where it was pre-CARES Act funding, when it was eking up. That's very, very powerful. That's what these decades of planning have allowed you to prepare for. I lost my picture. It's this way. That keeps your costs at the very bottom of that chart, but providing the very best that the Valley has to offer.
We're supposed to end it with, that's the McAllen way.
I don't think there's anything else for me to say on that. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Well, one is, all of the investment that we would be putting in these capital improvements, the community has needs for them, okay? And then there is revenue producing, parts of that investment will be producing revenues that we currently do not have.
That's right.
So the method to pay for this investment is, right now we have it as in, it's going to be in revenue producing from that investment that will pay the vast majority of it instead of from ad valorem tax.
A lot of it will go to revenue producing. A lot of it will go to protecting and enhancing your values. And the other thing I didn't point out is, if we don't do this, and that's okay, we can continue on pay-as-you-go. We will not be quite as ambitious with what we can do. And I did ask the financial advisors to help me think about what our capacity would look like without an adjustment, and that brings that $150 million down to about $45 million. And that money does not become available until 2034. So it's a significant amount of revenue today that will make enormous accomplishments possible very quickly, or we can continue on pay-as-you-go. We will still be amazing, But some of the ambitious projects that the commission has talked about and some of the priorities that we've heard expressed from the community that we have the capacity to provide for them will be more challenging to accomplish.
And there's no time but the present to do these projects because it's just gonna cost more and more.
We can chase inflation, and I would choose Michelle to run that race because she's the only runner on the team.
I'm losing.
The rest of us will sit and work our calculators.
You're absolutely right. We're gonna water.
Okay, onward.
Okay, we can turn that off. Eduardo, you ready? Did JJ have, you want to check? JJ didn't have any questions? Commissioner Zamora, I don't know if you can hear, but if you have any questions, please let Austin know, and I'll be happy to address those for you as well. All right, so we're going to now take a look at the capital improvement program that we're looking at this year. I want to take a minute and thank Eduardo. It was not easy for him this year. He submitted his, all the departments participate in it, but the majority of the projects come from the engineering department, and Eduardo sent them over, and I think my first reaction to what he sent over was no, we're going to rethink this. And then he and Michelle and I sat down and had a conversation along the lines of what I described to you a moment ago, and that is we want to make sure that with all of the projects that are possibilities, that we are making incremental progress on everything so that we keep things moving, and to Commissioner Fallick's point, that we are ready when opportunities that we can leverage to help execute these projects happen. So I'm going to turn the presentation over to Eduardo, and both of us are here available to answer questions. But we'll start with the capital improvement tab in the booklet that we passed out. Eduardo?
Mayor Commission, I definitely, just want to thank the local team, Michelle and I. As I said, we sat down. Originally, we turned in over 100 projects of CIP that translated over $100 million. Part of that is not just throwing projects out there. As I sat down with Michelle and went through with that, just to kind of go to some of the thought process, what we're doing or the team that engineering is doing, whether it's a project from another department or a transportation or drainage project, is we're incrementally trying to move those projects forward, knowing that we're not going to fund a whole project in 1 year. Sometimes 30% of the design happens in 1 year. Why would you set money aside for the whole year if you're not going to use it for year 2? So a lot of the thought process and a lot of what we sat down with management, Michelle and I, is discussing which projects do we incrementally want to move forward, and then which ones do we want to push through for the whole year. And so as we see our CIP request, when you see $200,000 or $385,000, it's us knowing that the engineer's not going to finish the design all that year, or we can't buy all that right away in 1 year. When you have 200 parcels, it's just not possible. When you're talking about City Hall design, it is a very complicated building. We have a lot of departments we have to coordinate with. So when we look at those, we know those are going to be phased over several years. And so the first thing I did is kind of set up this and what is a reoccurring project that happens yearly? And those seem to have got funded. The only one that is on pause is our downtown project because we're waiting for the wind study, as that was discussed last week. But those requests, we feel comfortable with.
Eduardo, let me ask you to pause there for 1 second. Because I want to make it very clear to the commission and the community that management's recommendation there is exactly that, a pause. We are $1.6 million in the general fund revenue over expenses. I anticipate that at the mid-year, as has historically trended, and you saw sales tax numbers come in today, more record-setting, where's Rebecca? Are you here? More record-setting sales tax growth, which we've talked about recently being very, very important to us, there will be revenue available to invest in downtown. And I will tell you, the reason I did not fund $225,000 is because that's not enough, but I don't know what that number needs to be. But it needs to be more than that, and that money will be available after we finish working with the consultants and developing out what that looks like. So I know that we have people listening or who will listen in the future that are interested in what knowing management's priorities are. And I want to reiterate what I have said every time this project has, I'm calling it a project, it's an area, has come up for discussion. You are heard, and we want to make sure that the investment that is made is very deliberate and one that is designed to have a positive impact. And I want to also pause as your city manager and thank the community and the responsible businesses that are operating downtown. There have been some events down there recently that unfortunately I could not attend because I had conflicts, but that I told my wife, I really want to be at that one because I want to make the statement that we're moving in the right direction. And so for those who have invested in the kinds of programming that lend to the culture and what the commission has expressed that area can be, I want to thank you and acknowledge the work that's being done down there. I'm sorry, Eduardo, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No problem, Mike. So the next phase, we look at the rollover projects. And another term, I don't like the word rollover, it's kind of a continuation. Last year, for us, we'll do the design or part of the design, and then we continue the second phase of that design, or we move into the right of way. And so when you look at those requests, sometimes we requested $1 million and we only got 250. And that's a discussion with management where we're thoughtful on what can you actually accomplish in the next year with the resources you have, with how things are moving. And so we feel very comfortable with where we landed there on our rollover projects. When we look at new projects, this is where we sat down and kind of talked about priorities, and that's where you'll see some didn't get funded. Not that they're not a priority for the city, but they're for consideration here on what I presented earlier in this presentation or for a future year. We feel very comfortable with where we landed with the new projects. We think those projects match the priority of the city, the transportation, their infrastructure projects, their drainage projects that are needed. I just want to highlight one that we sat down with Public Works, which is number 62. It's the drainage infrastructure repairs. I think Robert has done a tremendous job. We coordinated, we meet monthly. Now we have a really good working relationship. That $500,000, you guys may not see it because it's head walls, it's drainage pipe, it's hidden infrastructure that when it rains is very valuable to the city. It's not a big number, but it's a new thing that we did last year. Robert is pretty much finishing that $500,000 and is using this new $500,000. And it's a well needed $500,000 is going to be spent. So I wanted to highlight that one project. And so then
That's number
I'll turn it
60,
over-
what, 52 or what?
62. So that wherever they find damaged infrastructure on drainage, they have a list, and it's a longer list than what their operation budget can handle. And so they've gone ahead and they're getting ahead of that list, and this $500,000 helps eat into that list to make sure that our drainage infrastructure is there when rain comes or hurricane comes. Well needed, and appreciate that. We'll turn it over if you have any questions on the
The
CIP.
Hidalgo County Drainage Master Plan for our area, we're very comfortable with it, what they're doing.
Yes, in fact, they're finishing up a lot of what they've done on the bond.
Yeah.
They're going full capacity on all the ditches within
Right.
the city of McAllen. We have some additional projects where we're looking for grant money, and we have them listed. There's a drainage fee fund in this booklet that we would talk about where we strategically have those listed, but we're comfortable with the county's plan.
Yeah, and it would probably be good to explain the, what we've done in the South McAllen on that retention area. And what we, within this year, what we've done there and where we use the dirt.
So the commissioner's talking about, we have a TERS 2A, it's another fund in here. We have Balboa RDF, that's right south of our South Wastewater plant. We dug up about a half million cubic yards of earth. We took it from Bowie. We used it to fill up the Bowie reservoir. And so we had a 2-for-1 project. That capacity, if you go look at it on Google Earth, just think about that's the water that we taken out of Balboa subdivision and the surrounding area. We've shown the commission a drainage map. That amount of water is no longer sitting in streets. It will be sitting there. It's already working. We have a phase 2 where we would go and finish and grading, but that's more to make it look better. But it's already functioning. It already provides some capacity.
I want to ask Commissioner Aguirre a question because he served for years. I don't mean to put you on the spot. Do you recall what the capacity of Bowie was?
The capacity of Bowie, I think we had 55 acres that we actually used for the actual.
55 acres.
Acres.
And so that capacity is now serving as
Of the
an
70
outfall drainage
acres, yeah.
for the Balboa. That's massive.
So you're talking acre feet.
And now you're talking acre feet. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So that's what I'm
Just so the
saying.
community gets an understanding of the impact to the Balboa area that 2-for-1 project had. That's massive.
Well, and like I said, we're, not that we want a hurricane or anything like that to happen, but just in case, I think we're gonna be a lot better prepared to take care of that. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing I wanted to point out, Eduardo, and thank you, commissioners, if there are any questions about the projects, there is a little bit of money left in the fund. If there are any additional projects you want to talk about, we're happy to do that. But I want to also make sure that we have some new members of the commission. I want to make sure that we look at where the revenue that goes towards these capital projects come from right now, having just wrapped up the debt capacity presentation. And so if you look at page 3, the revenue that is used currently by the city to fund these capital projects come from those items listed on lines 22 through 26 of the spreadsheet. Gas royalties, decades ago. In fact, I had lunch, or I had a conversation with Mike Bettis yesterday. We were talking about where gas royalties were when he became city manager. I will tell you, he thought gas royalties were dwindling. I told him where they were today, and he said, "Oh my Lord, what are you doing?" But we also talked about Insight and that 380 agreement, and so that sales tax revenue is transferred to this fund and is right now primarily responsible for funding these capital improvement projects.
Yeah, the other thing I see is in number 30. Yeah, your recommendation is just basically to finish the engineering, is that what that's what it's for? So we won't start construction next year,
We might. We'll see how far we get with that.
but you're not budgeting for it.
I'm not anticipating it being ready to go. That was a $10.5 million project to pay for. Now, it's possible as we work through a series of workshops that could be one of the projects that we accelerate and spend some cash on out of that infusion from the unassigned fund balance that we talked about. So as we continue to have conversations about where we want to prioritize spending some of that money, that is possibly at the front of that list, Commissioner.
And there should be some money that the development in that area has contributed. There's got to be some fund to reduce that 10.5 million. And there's another development coming in also, that will pay into it also,
Yes, sir.
so.
We do have a.
But we still have to budget appropriate the total cost of the project, regardless of where the revenue is coming from. It just may not hit the fund balance.
Is this the area where you would see the alley improvements, or is that somewhere else?
I couldn't.
Alley
Is this the
improvements?
area where you would see the alley improvements, or is that at
The
another
alley
area?
was in our stimulus
Stimulus.
funds.
We're still continuing with that.
We have it on there, but we don't have a new. It's just finishing off last year.
Yeah,
The
so,
project we
so
kicked off.
alley improvements, Commissioner, and that's something we can talk about with debt capacity. If you look at that 2020, and we'll get to the infrastructure improvements tab here in a minute,
Okay.
but the alley improvements program was something the city embarked on using ARPA stimulus money. That funding has run out. We're getting to the end of what's going to be available of those funds. And so we'll have to start thinking about how we allocate revenue from the general fund to continuing that moving forward. And where that ranks on the commission's priority list.
It's important.
Number 33, Rudy and I were talking, what exactly is that?
The Blue Trail?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear the number.
Blue Trail, number 33?
Yes, sir, that's the blue trail that's on the north side, that's connecting Morris Park, that goes behind the establishments to 10th Street, and it's gonna head over, yes, the blue line ditch over to 2nd Street.
Okay, I guess the blue, because of the blue line ditch, that's
Blue
what
line
you're
ditch,
calling it?
yes.
The blue trail?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that was,
Yes.
I get it now.
It's really happy, it's not sad.
Okay, okay, all right. But yes, you are doing it, exactly. yeah.
Yes, sir, yeah, it's not,
That'll
so we're
be
gonna
the-
come back with the amenities there to
Yeah.
beautify it.
We have Bales Road, right? From 2nd to 10th. We're gonna do an expansion on that because of Quinta.
We have. It's a
Bales from 2nd to 10th was originally scheduled to be done with grant funding that we had received from Parks and Wildlife. Unfortunately, Parks and Wildlife told us we could not use that grant for the roadway improvement. And so we will be, in fact, they showed me renderings yesterday or today for pedestrian trail and park, which aligns with Parks and Wildlife appropriations that we can spend on. I have asked Michelle and the engineering team to bring back at the mid-year a traffic light at Bales because their studies show that that is needed. And we will have to look at Bales Road as part of a capital improvement project. We don't have sufficient revenue in what's left to add that new
How
project.
much was,
It was several $1 million.
Put on a roof.
5 million total.
yeah, but it's more the expansion because it's gonna get, because of this queue,
Yeah.
it's gonna hold a lot more traffic than the normal.
The original intention was, working with the state, was to have that Parks and Wildlife money to, our read of what the grant could be used for was to use that as a means and mechanism to get people to the park. Parks and Wildlife disagreed with us and said that their money needed to be used for things that are more park-like. And
How about a linear park?
that's what we're working on. They just wouldn't allow us to include the asphalt
Okay. Well,
or drainage,
Yeah, they're working.
the expensive part. Any other questions? Okay. Mayor, if there aren't any other questions, then we can take the Development Corporation budget next. Actually, I think it might be more efficient for us to take the Development Corporation budget last, so we can take care of the Development Corporation, the agencies that are covered there, and the general fund agencies at the same time. Get through the rest of the capital projects, and that might make a little bit more sense. So Eduardo, if you want to talk about the infrastructure and improvements tab, and that will address Commissioner Rios's questions.
So Mayor and Commission, this Infrastructure Improvement Fund, the third fund in our booklet, is our ARPA money. And so these projects that you have had a longer list, we've gone and completed most of them. What's on now, the 6 projects that we have is the alleys, connectivity trail, plus a precinct 2 project that's currently completing, the ERP, irrigation district right-of-way trails, the tennis center, and the multi-purpose facility property. If anybody has any questions, the one that's a rollover, Commissioner Rios, that you asked, is the alleys. We've already started that project. It's continuing, but it'll go past October. So that money is a rollover money. It's not a new project that we would be bidding out. So as the city manager said, if it's something y'all wanted to consider, then we would consider it separately.
I had a question.
Yes, sir, go ahead.
So kind of taking off a little bit from what I heard from Pepe on Bales Road, you know, there's still some segments or parts of our city thoroughfare plan where we've not reached the curb-to-curb goal, where we still kind of have half a street. And I'll give you a good example. Bales Road is one good example, right? And it seems like now everything's been developed on both sides of the street, but you don't have the curb to curb and all the sewer there. The other example in my district specifically, as an example, is Auburn, which has been identified as one of the, if not at least a minor arterial. If you go between 23rd Street and 29th, there's still parts where still half the street, and I'm talking about Mr. G's feed store, the Auburn Auburn Hills subdivision that already has a curve on one side, but the subdivision to the south doesn't. And so I guess strategically speaking, when are those neighborhoods, assuming that the developer, put money into escrow, for sewer and curb and gutter and all these other things, and we're responsible for the middle of the street, where are we in identifying those streets, especially when it's at least a minor arterial, and 2, has that been budgeted in any of the few years, past few years? And if not, are we looking forward to doing that next year?
Yeah, the answer to your question is probably a little bit of all of the above. We are trying to, like I said, strategically and in a constantly progressing way, knock out some of these projects. As I mentioned in the debt capacity presentation, traffic is a major category of infrastructure projects that are designed out, but that need either to consume the revenue that the city has available for capital projects, or be taken care of as part of a larger investment. And so my recommendation would be to use the insight money to take care of some of these smaller, less fiscally demanding projects, and then look at some of those larger projects as part of a strategic. And I would put these, especially since a lot of them are well into the design, in the first 5 years of capital improvement plan. And we can show you that list. And again, I would encourage the City Commission to collectively share with us your priority in accomplishing those, so that we get the community taken care of as quickly as possible.
And as far as that, using that insight money, we would have like a, special workshop so that all could be present, mayor, and
Yeah,
commissioners,
so
to have that discussion.
Yeah, I would propose continuing that debt capacity conversation.
Okay.
The insight revenue that's available for capital improvement, Commissioner, is, roughly $4 million a year,
Right.
round number, 4.6. So
Okay.
the projects you're talking about far exceed what the capital improvement budget could absorb,
Very well. Thank you so much for answering my question.
of course.
Which is the multipurpose facility?
That was a facility that would incorporate some athletic fields. It was a concept that was talked about at a commission retreat about a year ago, but it would have indoor basketball courts, volleyball courts, would have been will be, I don't want to talk in passive tense, a sports facility.
It's in the future.
Likely would be, as it was originally conceived, was going to be one building, but with opportunity, through conversation that, we could do one facility, we could break it up into 3 facilities to have something at the north side of town, the middle, kind of central, and something on the south side of town. It's a concept.
Okay.
Well, that's what we need to work on, that master plan.
Yeah.
Yeah, now that we have the large property, we need to do that master plan for the south, the middle, and then the future. Because the residents want it. And we need to have it. And a healthy community is one that, is out there and moving. We need, I'm not a good example of that, but we need to have that community, health-wise.
Any other questions on the infrastructure and improvements budget? Proposed budget. Correct myself. Okay, Eduardo, TERS 2A?
Mayor and Commission, TERS 2A, this is a fund where the county sets aside TERS money. Well, we've been looking at projects. There are specific projects that were identified, and then we have a reimbursement plan from the county. We have Augusta Avenue drainage, Country Club Terrace, at Dallas and First. These 3 projects are ready for construction, and we'll be going to construction either before fiscal year or
Is it 3 projects? Which ones?
the first 3
Did
on the
you
list.
mention Augusta Country Club in Dallas?
Yes, sir. They're going to go as one. Then we have the Rancho Roadway. We're working on that one. We're buying the right-of-way. So that is taking some time, but as soon as we have the right-of-way, the design has moved along well. Lindbergh Avenue drainage improvement is another low-hanging fruit project. That one we're looking to award. South McAllen Pine Ridge, we're looking to bid out next year as well. And then Yuma, kind of the same thing. We're looking at buying right-of-way, so that project will be in the right-of-way phase through that until we get it to construction. The other projects will be moving forward late this fiscal year or early next fiscal year in October, based on the funding that we have here.
How much funding is in this TERS 2A?
You've got a total resources beginning of the year of 9.2 million, and you'll have 3.6 million at the end of the year.
In other words, we have it already.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's what I want everyone to know.
Yes, sir.
These are rollover projects that we have not done, but we have that money set aside for it through the TERS of that area.
That's correct.
It didn't come from your admiral tax.
No, sir. That's right.
That's what we need to tell people that's, that comes from those type of funds that were generated from that area.
Yes, sir.
The reinvestment.
This is the
It goes
reinvestment
back to that area, yeah.
Reinvested in the zone. That's exactly right.
On the number 11 is the crossing, does the bridge?
Yes, that project, we just went to commission and we did the interlocal where they'll do the design. They'll come back and show us what that construction cost is. We'd prefer for the irrigation district to lower that line or come up with a design themselves. We did this with another irrigation district. That way, we ever have leaks, it's on them. They'll lower that, and then we come and put the roadway over. And so we're kind of waiting for the final construction cost. And I have the name, I think I said it accurately, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, and that's, so that,
We'll probably be
is
coming.
it gonna widen that bridge?
Yes,
That's
we need a
that's the
widening,
idea?
because right now it's only about
small, it's a
26
2-lane?
feet. We can't fit the left turn lane that we want to in there, and so we need them to siphon that, or whichever design they want to do. They have two different types of designs, but to widen that bridge, and then that we can get that third lane in there.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions on TERS 2A? If not, Mayor Pro Tem, we'll move on to the drainage fund fee.
Go ahead.
Eduardo?
So drainage fund fee, we have
And
five.
again, the revenue here, Commissioner, this is drainage funds collected as part of the tax, the trash collections. Go ahead, sorry.
Drainage fund fee, we have 5 rollover projects. Second in Savannah, Harvey Stormwater Pump Station upgrades, the McAllen lateral channel improvement, the Northeast Edinburgh lateral Redbud project, and the Trade Zone lateral project. Harvey is already under construction, the McAllen lateral channel improvements under construction, and the Trade Zone lateral channel improvement will be in construction next year.
Next year?
Next year.
Next year.
Second in Savannah, we're working, finishing up the design. And then the Northeast McAllen Edinburgh lateral, we're still purchasing right away on that project.
The second in Savannah, is that the one that's gonna probably alleviate all that part of Wichita and going north?
Right by the hospital where,
Right, that's like a pond.
Where Ridge and
It's a
Savannah's at, it
retention.
kind of ponds. We've talked about that in the past. That project is focused on alleviating that localized flooding there.
Great. All right, thank you.
I had a question for the city manager and city attorney on the drainage fee.
Yes, sir.
Does that still have a sunset provision? Do we have to renew it, or did we do something else with it to continue it?
The city attorney said he believes it sunsets, and we will need to renew it.
I'll review that.
Okay.
Well, we'll make sure we get you the exact date on that, and have an agenda item for you to consider prior to that time.
Thank you very much.
And right now, that fund shows slightly under $9 million.
Yes, sir, with 8.7 allocated to the rollover projects, you'll have a fund balance of $200,000. And then the next sheet in your packet shows you how that revenue breaks down from residential, commercial, industrial collections.
So just to add, Commissioner Aguirre, to the Balboa RDF, the Trade Zone lateral channel improvement is right adjacent to that RDF. It'll add about an additional half capacity of what we did in that project. We're widening right by the southwest wastewater plant, and so that's going to give additional relief to that area of McAllen when we finish that project.
Any other questions?
Commissioner, if I may answer your question, City Manager, it was via the ordinance which was adopted on January 8th, 2018. It's an annual review that we do during the budget process, so there's no automatic sunset, but if at any time during the budget workshop it's determined the fee is no longer necessary, we would then repeal the ordinance.
Commissioner Zamora, I don't know if you could hear the city attorney, but the way the sunset works on the drainage fund fee is it's not an automatic sunset. It's if the commission determines that the fee is no longer needed, it can be repealed as part of the budget process. We are obviously not recommending that the commission take that action. I am relaying a message from the city attorney because he doesn't have a microphone.
Discretionary, you're the anchor.
Okay. Any other questions on drainage? If not, the traffic drainage bond, those were obligations that are on the debt worksheet that we provided you. So you'll see those are the general obligation series 2018 and 19. There was $4 million dedicated to design, 19 million dedicated to construction. That is some of your debt that rolls off in 2044. The rates on that is between 3 and 5%. Of that money, resources that you had left to allocate towards the projects there was the $2.5 million that you show as your resources. You've got 8 rollover projects listed there, which will leave you with a balance of the revenue available from those bonds of roughly $800,000.
I'm sorry, Mr. City Manager, I didn't hear the response from the city attorney on the issue of the drainage fee sunset provision.
It doesn't automatically sunset, Commissioner. It is the commission's option to repeal it as part of the budget process. We are not recommending that you do that.
Oh, I understand now. Thank you.
Any question on any of those projects on the
So
traffic?
this is from the 2018 bond?
18 and 19, yes, sir.
And so we're still going to have $822,000 left?
Yes, sir.
Those are amounts that we've been paying on?
Yes, sir.
Is there,
Just to clarify a little bit of that, so the only project that is left in the original list is the second environmental. The other ones, we have recaptured funds from different grants we had, and so those, we've got additional projects. That fund still had the money, so we added additional projects.
We deployed all the bond money, in other words, and we've used excess money that we captured in terms of grant funding to include additional projects from the original
so
list.
we have utilized the funding that we're paying interest on?
Every
The
penny
last
of it.
project, the second
That's-
environmental, and then
That's kind of the question you had posed earlier, whether the commission looks at or
Yeah,
Grants.
because Julie is good at leveraging our money.
Okay.
No pressure, Julia.
Again, your name comes up to, her name comes up.
Yeah. Oh, right.
I've been telling the school the same.
Also, Commissioner Fallick, just, I'll mention it, Sonia whispered in my ear. We have taken a very active approach. I was going to say aggressive. I don't want to say that because we have an investment policy we have to adhere to. But we've taken a much more active approach to making sure that unassigned fund balance or revenue designated for projects that is not going to be necessary or expended in any given year, we are making sure that we've stair-stepped our investment strategy so that we are maximizing the return on money that isn't being put into the ground. And so we've seen over the last year, having transitioned from a more passive approach and renewing CDs and not looking actively at what treasury rates are and things like that, making sure that we're capturing the highest interest rates we can to offset the cost of holding that money.
And including depository changing.
Including depository changes. Yes, sir. Any other questions on any of those projects? If not, we can look at the Center for Urban Ecology.
Center for Urban Ecology, that project is wrapped up. The next phase of there is to get any furniture and fixtures that are required for that. that project.
Grand opening coming soon. As the mayor, Commissioner Zamora is here as the mayor stares me down, Commissioner Zamora. Any questions on the queue? We have, I will mention, it not necessarily directly tied to that budget, but there is one last grant we received, I think it was $5 million, right, Michelle? That Senator Hinojosa helped us capture. Again, to the question Commissioner Pepe Cabeza de Vaca was asking earlier, making sure that we utilize all of that $5 million towards investment into the center. We are making sure Julia's working hard, Eduardo's working hard to make sure that we find eligible places to put every one of those state dollars into that facility, just to maximize the quality of that facility for the community. And it's amazing and only going to get better because of the assistance we received from the senator. So we are greatly appreciative of his support.
They approved yesterday, right?
The school yesterday took action and is fully committed to their participation in the project. We sent them an invoice earlier this year for the balance of the $4 million they had committed. So they had $3 million outstanding on that project, and they committed to making that payment last night.
Great partner.
Awesome. Very good partner. Very, very happy with the relationship that we have with the school district right now. We talk about it all the time, but they literally are molding the future of this city, and the collaborative relationship that we enjoy with the leadership there right now is very much appreciated. City Hall and the reservoir development, if we want to talk about that, we can do that in executive session. We covered that in some executive sessions recently. We can talk about then, Eduardo, the street improvement construction bond fund and what's left there.
The street improvement construction bond, this is a project, Nolana from 23rd Aware Road, that we have federal funds that are being allocated through the MPO. We're finishing up the design and moving that project forward, but we do have some of the construction, or about half of the construction dollars, secured through federal funds on that. And so this would help to finish the design out, the request that we have here. We open it up for any questions.
But the recommendation from the manager is half of it.
There's another half of that 907 that will be funded. I believe it's out of the development court, or it's out of another fund. So we'll have the full 905. It's just the funds on this will be depleted.
Had to use up what was here.
Okay, I got you. But we will have enough.
To finish out the design with that.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Eduardo, I don't know if you and Denny want to tag team the parkland development, or if Denny's going to take this one?
Yeah, I'll take it, yeah, so, as commissioners, you know.
Denny, if I could just ask you to talk into the microphone, because we have one commissioner on Zoom.
Sorry about that. Good afternoon. As you know, the Parkland Zone funds for the Parks and Recreation Department is fees that developers pay in lieu of land. And so it's $700 per plat when they start to develop a subdivision, and if usually goes through city manager for approval, but the majority of the time we do get fees in lieu of land. And so they go into 3 separate accounts, and these 3 separate accounts help us go back to upgrade, beautify, improve existing parks, park amenities with new projects. And so as you can see here, over the last couple of years, we got some rollovers, and then we add new projects based on the funding that's present in those funds. So I'll entertain any questions that you may have.
When I was on P&Z, I always asked the question on when was the last time that dedication fee had been adjusted, and the answer was always, well, you have to take that to City Commission. Well, now I'm sitting on City Commission. When was the last time that parkland fee has been adjusted? Because in my entire time sitting on that board, I've thought that that fee was way too low considering the parks that the city needs to build for quality of life, and I think that's something that ought to be addressed.
I can't tell you the last
I
time.
can answer that question indefinitely for you, and I can tell you that the last time that fee was adjusted was before you were sitting on P and Z. And
Well, I know that to be true because it never was adjusted.
The last time it was adjusted was May 31st, 2002.
So
Your assessment is
You're
correct.
like AI.
Let it go, Austin.
Yeah,
it is the fee in lieu of the land is way too low.
At the pleasure of the commission, we are
Good.
happy to bring that back for you to consider. That would require official action by the commission at a meeting from the dais. We can workshop that among staff and.
Let's try this. Austin, what would be the appropriate
Give us three options. Three options or four.
We're happy to bring that back. We want to, I agree with you, Commissioner. I think that, responsible development requires participation. We also want to make sure that those fees don't dissuade development. So we want to find the right balance between what that parkland costs and the value that it brings versus the price for development. So we'll bring
Let's
that.
keep in mind, though, it's not really the price of development. The developer is choosing whether to dedicate the land or to pay the fee.
Correct.
And so
That's
the
correct.
cost of land has not remained constant. The
That's
fee
correct.
has.
That's correct. And my hesitation, the breath I took was, I don't think the adjustment to the fee will keep up with where value has gone, but I think we will certainly bring back a reasonable recommendation to you for you to consider, and then, we'll take the guidance from the commission as
But I
you all
think
deem
it's a
appropriate.
workshop item. Yeah, it's a workshop item.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Denny, those 290, that's our half
290?
on the Springfest parking? Because remember, we're gonna go 50/50 with,
As an interlocal with
That,
Presidio.
for that partnership, we are doing, we purchased the materials, and then the county will do the work, the construction, the labor. Yes, sir.
Okay. So that's where that's our part.
Yes, sir.
290.
So we're actually at 350, rolling over 290. The design plan and all that we had to get that work prior to get done. Yes, sir.
Any other questions on parkland fees?
The Rancho Park real quick. It's right there. Where we at on that one?
So team is finished up doing the in-house stuff that we were in charge of taking care of, the quick bills, the trash cans, the benches. That's currently getting purchased and going to be installed. The county is coming in at the end of this month to start the parking lot. So we partnered up with Public Works, Robert and his team, to make sure that we get an open PO and get the materials ready to have it delivered over for the precinct to do the actual work on the
Give
parking
or
lot.
take, when do you think we're gonna finish that project altogether?
We're hoping by the end of this fiscal year. So that was the target that we shot for. So depending on now on the county schedule on when they can come in and get that parking lot
Right.
completed.
Thank you.
Okay, commissioners, mayor, I'm ready to move on to parks, facilities, and
Real quick,
fire station.
I'm sorry, Ike. Fireman's Park, there's some improvements. What improvements are you gonna do on Fireman's Park?
That one we're gonna
Park
look at redoing the roof on the pavilion, upgrade the kitchenette area. So we're just giving it an improvement overall look, aesthetics
Okay.
on the facility.
Okay, thanks.
Is there money being allocated for the design on the proposed new park at Lark?
Not out of that fund, no.
Elsewhere.
Park facility, fire station number 2, construction fund, rollover project for repair of the AC at fire station number 2.
But
Y'all keep running into burning buildings. I'm questioning the air conditioner, but unless there's questions about, we need to get that done. We're working with the HVAC people on what the solution is for the challenges we've had in that building.
have we already finished addressing the IMAX air conditioning?
IMAS is finished.
IMAX is finished?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, we did that. I can't remember if it was the tail end of last year's budget or the beginning of this year's budget. But yeah, that was completed as an emergency repair before collage. Well, the funding was allocated before collage last year, and completed just after collage last year. Jeremy, airport CIP?
Thank you. Mayor, City
Just
Commission.
make sure you talk into the microphone so Commissioner Zamora can hear you.
Mayor, City Commission, good afternoon. The fund I'll mentioning here is the Airport Capital Improvement Fund, which is a net zero fund. If you see on the sheet 44, you'll see the revenue sources up at the top where we pull in grant funds from the FAA, passenger facility charges where we'll transfer in from that fund to cover either local matches or a higher percentage of the project, and then from our operating fund. So essentially, sometimes you'll see a small balance, but essentially it's a net zero fund. That fund right there, we continue to work through our runway safety and taxiway safety project. We are at the tail end of phase 3, 4A, and 4C, which is out in the airfield. And we will be continuing the final phase of that drainage project, which is 4B. That has been a continuous project since about 2009. We started that project with the study. And so we've been working on that for years, and it's money well invested. If you recall, we had an event last year, a major rain event, which some other airports had to close down because of that rain. We did very well through that event, and we continue to handle the rain events really well. So we continue to work on that infrastructure out in the airfield, which is very important to maintaining that infrastructure and that constant air service.
And I just want to, I'm sorry to interrupt, but Commissioners, we will have a workshop item for you, I think 2 meetings from now, where we will show you all of the improvements that we've made out there, because it is a very significant investment, and our partners at the airlines rely on us for their operations regionally. We are a diversion airport, and Jeremy, you can talk a little bit about that, but the investment that we've made there is really, really critical to the success that we've had. So I applaud the team at the airport for the work that they've done. Sorry.
So we'll continue to work on that. On the land side, the parking lots were on schedule to finish. We did not show completion on there, but we're scheduled to complete the parking lots on the land side come September and open those up in November is what we're scheduling for. On the general aviation side of the...
How many parking spaces?
I'm sorry?
How many parking spaces are we adding?
It's about 17% capacity, about 242 spaces total. Yes, sir. And then on the general aviation side of the house, we are continuing with that. In fact, you took action on the design for the GA ramp expansion, which will continue on that. So those are the major projects happening in the Capital Improvement Fund.
The tower?
The tower is actually an FAA-owned tower. FAA is working on that tower themselves. Currently, there is a temporary tower in place for the tower operators.
They did finally award on that, though, didn't they?
They did. They've mobilized, so you'll see some movement out there in that area.
Took them a while,
Well, it sure did.
but they are going to start the remediation.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's been years.
Yeah, and the trailer, the temporary tower, has been a challenge for us. It takes up space that we need with our operations out there to park airplane. And so they've had to relocate that. We had to move a fence line to accommodate it. It ate into some of the overflow parking spaces, employee parking spaces that are out there. So we are very much looking forward to them moving that project along. But like Jeremy says, that's federal property and they've got to maintain that. If there's no more questions on airport CIP, we can talk about the PFC fund.
The passenger facility charge fund is the $4.50 that's collected. That's maxed out at $4.50 by federal law. We had a beginning fund balance of about $9 million. There is a lot of eligibility and federal oversight on that passenger facility charge. But I will tell you that we completed bridges 2 and 4. They've been great help. Those were one of the oldest bridges. 1 and 3 got less use, but they're just as old as well. We'll be replacing those. In fact, we're getting ready to go out to bid for that. The ARF unit that we've been working on with Fire Chief on replacing a second ARF unit in the last 4 years. That one should be delivered in May of next year. And we are about to get started on the PA FIDS improvements. That's a few years overdue. That's the public address system and the flight information display system. So those are some of the major projects that are funded by the PFC fund.
Any questions? If not, customer facility charge?
The customer facility charge fund is a fund that's managed by, we receive funds through the rental car agencies, the 7 agencies that work there. There's a $3.50 charge per transaction day for that. That is about $1 million that are allocated for rental car facilities. We are working currently on the quick turnaround facility to serve the rental cars. And that is a very important part of our business, and any improvements for rental car efforts.
Any questions on that?
Jeremy, is that more or less what I asked you last time about how much are the rental companies paying to park their cars there? Or is that something different?
That's a different fund.
Okay.
Our operating fund is where we receive the funds for the rental car spaces.
Just on a side note, if you can all revisit how much we're charging them, you can let us know how much the rental.
We can get you the rates that are in the leases that we have with those companies. What we do, Commissioner, is on a periodic, I think it's roughly every 5 years or so, we negotiate rates and fees with all those entities. And we've got lease agreements that are revisited. We've got a couple of consultants that help us with that work. In recent years, we have, as we've discussed with the commission, made efforts to make sure that we are, and apropos to what Commissioner Fallick mentioned earlier, looking at the facility fees that we're charging everywhere, including at the airport, and adjusting those rates to reflect market value. And at the airport in particular, because our grant assurances require us to do that. So we will make sure that the rates we're charging there are fair and reasonable, equitable, both ways.
Thank you.
I know, Commissioner Fallick, you were trying to ask a question.
Well, I've mentioned it before, but as any of those leases are coming due, I think they ought to be looked at, because I still think that our end game is an off-site rental car facility, because that land around the airport is just too valuable. And I think we do have opportunity to leverage that asset.
Yeah, we appreciate that comment, and have definitely made a note of that as we're looking.
But you need to look into your leases so that you're not obligating yourself time-wise.
Absolutely, absolutely. If there's no more questions on the the airport, we'll move to the land port.
City Commissioners, the CIP fund, it's a fund that It's funded by an earmark of 50 cents for every toll collected. Bridges.
Fine, I just ask you to make sure you talk into the mic so commissioners
Yes,
and more
yes.
can hear well.
Got it. Can you hear me? So the bridge fund is a fund that we collect, it's a 50-cent earmark for every vehicular toll that we collect. That's how we fund the CIP fund. And here you have a list of projects that we have for the McAllen Hidalgo International Bridge. We hired an architect that's design should be complete by the end of this fiscal year, and we should be able to go out for bids for all these projects early next fiscal year. I'll be happy to answer any questions on these projects.
The first item, that was funded last year.
It was, and the architect didn't finish, so we weren't able to go out for bids this year. So we're just rolling over the funds.
All of these are being rolled over.
Yes,
So all of this funding, we had earmarked last year.
for this fiscal year, and they're being rolled over for next fiscal year.
Okay.
You want to talk about Ansel Duas at the same time? Sure.
The Ansel Duas International Bridge, we have an ongoing recurring fund. This is also, the CIP fund is also funded by the tolls collected. We have a computer and equipment upgrades. We have a toll revenue system out there. We are continuing upgrading that. So that account pays for all of that, the treadles and the systems. And we're also adding another truck booth at Ansel Duas for southbound. And that would be, with this project, we're rolling over. We didn't use it this fiscal year because we didn't have the funds. And then the facility upgrades, that is upgrades on air conditioning and the systems that we have in the facility.
So how many truck booths are we gonna have in total, adding this one?
Well, we'll have 2 tow booths, but we're also going to be adding an additional one for processing of the full cargo.
Cargo.
Cargo, yes.
Questions?
Mayor, there were some legal issues I had discussed with the city attorney earlier today that I'd like to address with the city commission in executive session. So at the mayor's discretion, with your permission, I'd like to request that we recess to executive session.
Recess into executive session, and everybody else is excused, right? And there being no further business, this meeting is adjourned.